the first time of me telling this story. This has been years. It started me telling this story when my sister passed away. So this is like years of me getting to this point, to this layer. I always stand true by what I said. I always stand true by what happened.
The internet didn't whisper this time, it screamed. Because late last night, timelines erupted with one of the most shocking, uncomfortable, and explosive claims the Braxton family has ever been dragged into. Alleged leaked DNA paperwork, family group chats imploding. And at the center of the storm, Tamar Braxton, reportedly pushed past her breaking point after her own sister, Toanda Braxton, was accused of letting something devastating slip. Here's what has everyone frozen in disbelief. Screenshots began circulating claiming to show DNA reports connected to Ashley, reports that the internet immediately ran wild with, twisting them into a single nuclear rumor. Is Tamar actually Ashley's mother? No confirmations, no official documents, just alleged paperwork, blurred names, and enough ambiguity to send social media into absolute chaos. And then Tamar snapped. Fans say her reaction wasn't calculated. It wasn't PR polished. It looked raw, furious, hurt in a way you don't fake. Allegedly, Tamar went off behind the scenes, accusing someone close to her of crossing a line that can't be uncrossed. Subtweets started flying. Old family tensions resurfaced. And suddenly, years of quiet resentment, unresolved trauma, and sibling rivalry came flooding back into public view. Group chats are exploding. Twitter is split down the middle. Some say this rumor is reckless and cruel. Others insist there's no smoke without fire. And hovering over all of it is one terrifying question no one seems able to answer. If this is all fake, why does it feel like it hit so close to home? Because if what's being whispered is even partially true, or if this leak crossed a boundary that was never meant to be public, then this isn't just another celebrity blow-up. This is a family fracture playing out in real time, and it's about to get a whole lot uglier. The moment the alleged DNA leak rumor hit the timeline, the Braxton name stopped trending like entertainment and started trending like an emergency. Because this wasn't about shade, contracts, or reality TV drama anymore. This was about family bloodlines, secrets, and a line that, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. Within minutes, the story mutated. What began as unverified screenshots, blurred names, cropped pages, zero provenance, was instantly reshaped by the internet into a single, explosive claim. That Tamar Braxton might secretly be Ashley's mother, and that Toanda Braxton had somehow let that information slip. No proof, no confirmation, no verified documents. But once a rumor like that lands, facts become optional and emotion takes over. Fans noticed Tamar's energy shift almost immediately. Her posts turned sharper, shorter, less playful. People who have followed her for years said they recognized the signs. Not promo anger, not reality TV theatrics, but the kind of fury that comes when something private is dragged into the light without consent. Insiders claimed Tamar felt blindsided, not just by the rumor itself, but by who it was allegedly tied to. That's what made this hit different, because the implication wasn't that a blogger leaked something. It was that family did. Group chats allegedly exploded behind the scenes. According to whispers, Tamar confronted people close to her demanding to know who spoke, who shared, and who failed to shut it down fast enough. The core accusation wasn't about biology, it was about betrayal, about trust, about boundaries that should never be crossed, even accidentally. Toanda's name became the lightning rod. Not because she confirmed anything, she hasn't, but because fans began scrutinizing her past interviews, podcasts, and casual remarks for slips. Innocent comments were suddenly replayed like courtroom evidence. Pauses were treated as tells. Jokes were reinterpreted as foreshadowing. The internet decided there had to be a reason her name was attached, even if that reason hadn't been proven. And that's where things got dangerous. Because speculation about DNA and parentage isn't just gossip, it's identity. It rewrites someone's origin story without their consent. And many fans pushed back hard, calling the rumor reckless and cruel, especially given how openly Tamar has spoken about trauma, motherhood, and family pressure in the past. Others weren't as sympathetic. They argued that the Braxton family has long benefited from publicizing their private lives, and that curiosity comes with that territory. If it's not true, say it, some demanded. If it's fake, shut it down. But people close to Tamar allegedly warned that responding would only legitimize a lie that never deserved oxygen. Silence, in this case, became its own battleground. Every hour without a denial fueled another theory. Some claimed lawyers were involved. Others said the family was scrambling to contain damage. A few went as far as to allege that this was a decades-old secret protected by mutual agreement, claims with no evidence, but enormous emotional impact. Meanwhile, Tamar's supporters noticed something else. Her anger wasn't performative, it was protective. Insiders claimed she was less concerned with public opinion and more furious about the idea that Ashley, who never asked to be part of this, was being dragged into adult speculation for clicks. If there was a line, this rumor crossed it at full speed. As the night wore on, the conversation fractured. One side demanded accountability from anyone who spread unverified documents. Another side demanded clarity from the family. A third warned that the entire situation was spiraling into defamation, fueled by algorithmic hysteria. And hovering over all of it was a question no one could answer safely. Why would a rumor this specific surface now? Some suggested timing. Others suggested unresolved family tension. A few pointed out that the Braxtons have a long history of complicated maternal dynamics, guardianship roles, and blurred boundaries that the public has never fully understood. That context made the rumor feel plausible to people who wanted it to be, even without proof. By sunrise, the damage was already done. Search results were polluted. Headlines hinted without confirming. Comment sections treated speculation as fact. And the family, who had not verified a single detail, were being asked to defend themselves against a narrative they didn't create. The most chilling part, this wasn't about whether the rumor was true. It was about how quickly the internet decided it could be. And as Tamar's silence stretched on, insiders warned that the next move, whether a statement, a lawsuit, or continued refusal to engage, would determine whether this stays a rumor or becomes a permanent scar on the Braxton family name. Because once DNA enters the conversation, there's no such thing as just gossip anymore. And this story was only getting started. By the second wave, the rumor had mutated into something far more volatile than a single accusation. It wasn't just about alleged paperwork anymore. It was about control, narrative ownership, and who gets to decide what parts of a family story belong to the public. And once that door cracked open, the internet kicked it in. The temperature rose when people realized the so-called DNA reports weren't traceable to any legitimate source. No lab name, no case number, no verifiable chain of custody. Yet the absence of proof didn't slow belief, it accelerated it. Because the screenshots looked official enough to trigger panic, and panic doesn't wait for confirmation. Commentators began treating aesthetics as evidence. Why would someone fake this? Became the most repeated and most dangerous question on the timeline. That's when Tamar Braxton reportedly went from furious to strategic. Insiders claimed her initial reaction was emotional, raw, protective, explosive, but that quickly gave way to something colder, calculated. People close to her allegedly said she stopped engaging not because she didn't care, but because she realized engagement would legitimize a rumor designed to force her hand. The goal, they whispered, wasn't truth, it was reaction, and Tamar refused to give it. The internet didn't take that well. Silence was immediately reframed as confirmation by bad faith actors. If it wasn't true, she'd deny it, people insisted, ignoring decades of legal advice that say the opposite. Others argued the family was scrambling behind the scenes, citing nothing but the fact that statements hadn't dropped fast enough to satisfy curiosity. Meanwhile, Towanda Braxton became the focal point of a secondary storm. Her social media activity, likes, follows, timing, was dissected like forensic evidence. A delayed post was treated as guilt. A normal caption was read as deflection. Fans replayed her past appearances, freezing frames and parsing phrasing for anything that could be interpreted as a slip. The pressure was relentless, and it had nothing to do with facts. What made this phase especially toxic was the way speculation began to masquerade as concern. People claimed they were just worried about Ashley, while simultaneously spreading a rumor that could permanently alter how she's viewed. Others framed their curiosity as advocacy, arguing that truth is healing, even as they circulated unverified claims that could do real harm. The contradiction didn't slow them down, it justified them. Behind the scenes, whispers suggested the family was in crisis mode. Not because there was something to hide, but because the rumor itself had crossed into dangerous territory. Legal lines, ethical lines, emotional lines. DNA isn't just information, it's identity. And dragging that into public speculation without consent is a violation no apology can undo. The tension spilled into fan communities. Some longtime supporters drew a hard line, refusing to engage with any content that treated the rumor as entertainment. Others doubled down, insisting the family owed the public clarity after years of reality TV exposure. That argument fractured fandoms, turning what had once been communal support into ideological warfare. Comment sections became brutal. Anyone urging restraint was accused of protecting celebrities. Anyone asking for proof was labeled in denial. Nuance disappeared. The story demanded sides, and people picked them with alarming ease. Then came the ugliest turn yet. Anonymous accounts began hinting at historical context, suggesting that the Braxton family had long-standing secrets around motherhood and guardianship. No details, no timelines, just implication. The vagueness made it impossible to debunk and perfect for virality. And once again, implication did what evidence could not. Responsible voices tried to intervene. They reminded audiences that DNA rumors have consequences. That misinformation spreads faster than corrections. That Ashley, regardless of any adult drama, deserves privacy and protection. But those voices struggled to compete with the adrenaline of speculation. What chilled observers most was how quickly the goalposts moved. At first, people demanded proof. When none appeared, they demanded statements. When statements didn't come, they demanded explanations. Each unmet demand became further evidence that something was being hidden. The logic loop closed in on itself. Through it all, Tamar remained publicly quiet. That quiet wasn't emptiness, it was containment. And people familiar with her history knew this wasn't avoidance. It was survival. Tamar has spent years navigating public breakdowns, media scrutiny, and mental health battles. Insiders said this time she was choosing a different approach. Protect the innocent, starve the rumor, and refuse to let the internet dictate her emotional labor. But starvation takes time. And in that time, damage accumulates. Search engines cached speculation. Headlines flirted with implication. Casual readers mistook rumors for reporting. And the family name, one built on talent, vulnerability, and resilience, was being stress-tested by a narrative it never asked for. By the end of the second escalation, one truth was undeniable. This wasn't about whether a rumor was true. It was about how quickly the public decided it deserved an answer. And as the pressure mounted, insiders warned that the next phase wouldn't be louder. It wouldn't be messier. It would be colder, marked by legal moves, hard boundaries, and decisions that don't play well on social media. Because when gossip reaches this level, families stop explaining. They start protecting. By the third surge, the atmosphere around the rumor had shifted from chaos to something far more chilling: containment. Not silence born of confusion, but silence shaped by calculation. The kind that happens when a line has been crossed so thoroughly that the priority is no longer correcting strangers, it's protecting people. And in this case, protecting meant drawing boundaries that the internet wasn't prepared to respect. What became unmistakable was that Tamar Braxton was no longer reacting to noise, she was responding to risk. Insiders claimed the family's internal focus had narrowed fast. Not on optics, not on winning the timeline, on stopping a rumor from metastasizing into something legally and emotionally irreversible. DNA allegations don't live in the realm of casual gossip. They invite reputational harm, emotional distress, and long-term consequences for people who never consented to public speculation. That understanding changed everything. The internet, however, did not slow down. Instead, it doubled down on entitlement. Commenters insisted that because the Braxtons had shared parts of their lives on television, they had forfeited the right to privacy. Others demanded a definitive statement, a denial, a clarification, anything that would satisfy curiosity. Few acknowledged the ethical problem of demanding answers to a question that never should have been asked publicly in the first place. That tension hardened into hostility. People began treating restraint as strategy and strategy as guilt. The logic was circular and unforgiving. If there's nothing to hide, speak. If you don't speak, you're hiding. It ignored decades of legal guidance that says engaging with falsehoods can amplify harm. It ignored the human cost. It ignored the possibility that not every story belongs to the audience. Behind the scenes, whispers suggested the family had unified around one principle: no more oxygen. Not because the rumor had merit, there was still no verified evidence, but because every response risked dragging an innocent person deeper into the spectacle. Sources claimed Tamar's anger had cooled into resolve. Her priority wasn't clearing her own name, It was shielding others from being defined by a lie they never authored. The scrutiny then pivoted, again, to Toanda Braxton. Her every move was monitored with obsessive intensity. Normal social activity was recast as signaling. Inactivity was treated as confession. The internet demanded she explain a rumor she didn't create, fueled by screenshots she didn't verify, about claims she never confirmed. The cruelty of that expectation became obvious to some observers and invisible to others. At this stage, responsible voices grew louder, if not yet dominant. Journalists, lawyers, and mental health advocates pointed out the dangers of rumor-driven narratives about identity. They warned that even debunked claims leave residue. Cached pages, lingering associations, whispered doubts that follow people for years. They reminded audiences that the absence of proof is not a puzzle to be solved by imagination. Still, the machine churned. What changed the momentum was not a statement, but fatigue. The public began to realize there would be no reveal, no satisfying twist, no gotcha moment. The rumor had nothing to feed on except repetition, and repetition without new information eventually exposes itself. As the frenzy cooled, a different reckoning emerged. People started asking why the rumor felt so believable to some in the first place. Why audiences are so quick to assume hidden maternity, secret guardianship, or concealed parentage, especially when it involves women in the public eye. The answer was uncomfortable, because sensationalism sells, and because women's bodies and choices are treated as communal property online. That reframing mattered. It shifted the conversation from "is this true?" to "why did we run with this?" It exposed how easily curiosity becomes consumption, and how quickly empathy disappears when a story promises shock value. The rumor didn't need evidence to spread, it needed appetite. Through it all, Tamar's public posture remained firm. No subtweets escalating the drama, no cryptic hints, no emotional appeals. Just a refusal to let a false premise dictate her behavior. For longtime observers, this restraint marked a turning point. It suggested growth forged through past storms, a recognition that not every attack deserves a response, and not every audience deserves access. By the end of the third escalation, the outcome was clear even without resolution. No DNA had been authenticated. No claim had been substantiated. No secret had been proven. But the damage attempted was real. What lingered was not a scandal, but a lesson about how quickly narratives can be weaponized, how families can be pressured to perform pain for public reassurance, and how restraint is often misread as weakness in a culture addicted to immediacy. The final truth settled quietly. This wasn't a story about exposure. It was a story about limits. And when families hit those limits, they stop answering questions. They start closing doors. If you're still here, don't treat this like just another messy headline you scroll past and forget. What you just watched was a real-time example of how fast speculation can turn into something dangerous, and how quickly boundaries get tested when the internet smells a secret. Hit like right now if you believe there should be a line between curiosity and cruelty. Not because you have all the answers, but because conversations like this only stay visible when people actively engage instead of letting the loudest, most reckless voices dominate the narrative. Your like matters more than you think. Drop a comment and say what stood out to you most. Was it the silence, the entitlement, the way unverified claims spread like fact? The comment section is where this story continues to evolve, and where people either slow the chaos down or pour more fuel on it. And subscribe immediately, because this situation isn't over, it's just quieter. The loud part already happened. What comes next is subtler. Legal moves, closed doors, changed relationships, and stories that never get publicly corrected but still reshape everything behind the scenes. If you're not subscribed, you're going to miss the context that explains why certain things suddenly stop being talked about. People will try to downplay this. They'll say it was just a rumor. They'll say it didn't matter. But anyone paying attention knows how permanent online speculation can be, even when it's false. Stay locked in. Stay critical. Because the real danger isn't what gets said out loud. It's what spreads unchecked when no one stops to ask whether it ever should have been said at all.